Welcome to Lexivia English. Ready to take your English to the next level? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. So sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy the journey.
Chapter 1. The Great Decision. It started with a simple question that spread like wildfire across social media. What if we chose our leaders the same way we choose jury members? The question came after years of bitter election campaigns, fake news, and growing distrust in politicians. People were tired of empty promises and endless political fighting. They wanted something completely different. The idea was surprisingly simple. Instead of voting for candidates who spent millions on campaigns, why not randomly select qualified citizens to serve in government? This system, called sortition, had actually been used in ancient Athens, the birthplace of democracy. But no modern country had ever tried it on a national level. The movement began in small towns across different countries. In a village in Switzerland, they decided to choose their mayor by lottery from a list of qualified volunteers. The result was surprising. Maria, a 34-year-old teacher and mother of 2, became mayor. She had never run for office before, but she knew her community's problems well. She organized town meetings where everyone could speak, and within 6 months, the village had solved issues that previous mayors had ignored for years. News of these successful experiments spread quickly. Online forums buzzed with discussions about lottery democracy. Political scientists began writing articles. Television shows invited experts to debate the idea. Slowly, what started as a crazy internet question was becoming a serious political movement. The world was about to witness the biggest change in democracy since the right to vote was extended to all citizens. Chapter 2. The First National Experiment. The small European nation of Estonia became the first country to officially adopt lottery democracy. After a national referendum where 67% of citizens voted yes, they created a new system. Instead of electing a parliament, they would select 150 citizens by lottery to serve for 2 years. The only requirements were being over 25, having completed high school, and having no serious criminal record. The selection process was broadcast live on television, like a national lottery draw. Names were pulled from a database containing every eligible citizen. The chosen representatives came from all walks of life: farmers, nurses, engineers, shop owners, students, and retirees. There were no career politicians among them. The world watched with fascination and skepticism. Traditional politicians from other countries predicted chaos. How can ordinary people make complex decisions about taxes and foreign policy? They asked. News reporters camped outside the Estonian Parliament building, waiting to document the expected disaster. But something unexpected happened. The lottery parliament began with a simple rule. Before making any decision, they would spend weeks learning about the issue from experts. They invited economists to explain budget proposals. They brought in scientists to discuss environmental policies. They listened to teachers, doctors, police officers, and business owners. Unlike traditional politicians who often made decisions based on party loyalty or campaign promises, these citizens focused only on finding the best solutions. Chapter 3: The Ripple Effect. Within 6 months, Estonia's lottery parliament had achieved something remarkable. They passed a healthcare reform that both doctors and patients supported. They created an education policy that teachers actually wanted to implement. Most surprisingly, they solved a budget crisis that elected politicians had argued about for 3 years. The secret was simple. Without the need to win votes or please party leaders, the lottery representatives could make decisions based purely on evidence and common sense. They didn't waste time on political theatre or personal attacks. They worked together like a team trying to solve problems, not competitors fighting for power. Other countries began to take notice. In Canada, 3 provinces decided to select their environmental committees by lottery. In Ireland, a citizens' assembly chosen by lottery successfully resolved the complicated issue of abortion rights that elected politicians had avoided for decades. In Japan, several cities began using lottery selection for budget committees. The results were consistently positive. Citizens chosen by lottery made decisions faster, with less conflict, and with better outcomes than traditional elected officials. They were also more trusted by the public. Opinion polls showed that people had more confidence in randomly selected representatives than in politicians they had elected. Chapter 4: The Resistance. Not everyone was happy with these changes. Professional politicians saw their careers threatened. How could they compete with a system that didn't need their skills in campaigning and fundraising? Political parties, which had existed for centuries, suddenly seemed unnecessary. Wealthy donors who had influenced elections through campaign contributions found themselves powerless. The resistance was fierce. Traditional politicians organized protests, claiming that lottery democracy was undemocratic and dangerous. They argued that governing required special skills that ordinary citizens didn't have. Some religious leaders called it against God's will to choose leaders by chance. Wealthy business owners who had enjoyed special access to elected officials funded campaigns against lottery systems. Media coverage became divided. Some newspapers praised the efficiency and honesty of lottery governments. Others published scary stories about unqualified amateurs making important decisions. Television debates became heated arguments between supporters and opponents of the new system. But the most powerful resistance came from an unexpected source. Some citizens themselves. Many people had grown comfortable with the idea that politics was something other people did. The thought that they might be randomly selected to serve in government frightened them. "I'm just a bus driver," said one man in a television interview. "How can I decide about foreign policy?" This fear of responsibility became the lottery system's biggest challenge. Chapter 5: The Global Transformation. Despite the resistance, the lottery democracy movement continued to grow. Within 5 years, 12 countries had adopted some form of lottery selection for their governments. The results were consistently positive. Faster decision-making, less corruption, higher public trust, and policies that actually solved problems instead of just winning votes. The most dramatic change happened in education policy. Countries using lottery democracy began selecting education committees by random draw from parents, teachers, and education experts. These committees, free from political pressure, made bold reforms. They reduced standardized testing, increased teacher pay, and created flexible learning programs. Student performance improved dramatically compared to countries still using traditional elected school boards. Environmental policy also benefited from lottery democracy. Citizens chosen by random draw were more willing to make tough decisions about climate change because they didn't need to worry about re-election. They implemented carbon taxes, banned single-use plastics, and invested heavily in renewable energy. The planet began to see real progress on environmental issues for the first time in decades. Economic inequality, which had grown worse under traditional democracy, began to decrease in lottery countries. Representatives who came from all social classes naturally created policies that helped everyone, not just the wealthy donors who had funded election campaigns. Chapter 6: A New Chapter in Human Governance. 10 years after the first lottery parliament in Estonia, the world had changed dramatically. Traditional elections still existed in many countries, but they were no longer seen as the only way to choose leaders. Hybrid systems emerged, combining elected positions with lottery-selected committees and councils. The quality of public discourse improved significantly. Without the need for dramatic campaign promises or attack advertisements, political discussion became more thoughtful and fact-based. Citizens became more engaged in government, knowing that they might someday be called to serve. Schools began teaching civic responsibility and critical thinking skills to prepare students for possible selection. Perhaps most importantly, the relationship between citizens and government fundamentally changed. Government was no longer something distant and professional that happened to people. It became something that people did together, taking turns to serve their communities. Public service returned to its original meaning. Service by the public, for the public. The change wasn't perfect. Lottery democracy had its own problems and challenges. Some randomly selected representatives struggled with the complexity of their roles. Others made mistakes that professional politicians might have avoided. But overall, the experiment in lottery democracy proved something remarkable. Ordinary citizens, given the right support and information, could govern themselves better than the professional political class ever had. As humanity entered a new era of governance, children grew up with a different understanding of democracy. They learned that leadership wasn't about winning popularity contests or raising money for campaigns. It was about service, responsibility, and working together to solve problems.